have tonight for the green and gold. One of the storylines for tonight's game, and joining us now, Waking Up in Vegas, brought to you by our friends at Cowall Investment Group, the retirement specialist, My Pillow Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, Wayne Larrivee.
How do you know I'm not just getting in?
That's what you get for answering our phone call. Good morning, Wayne. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. How you doing, guys?
I'm doing good at an undisclosed luxury location in Sin City.
Well off the strip, I might add, guys. Well off the strip.
Well off the strip, but still, there you go. Okay, here we are tonight, Monday Night Football. All eyes of the world on the Raiders and the Packers. What is your big storyline going into this game?
Well, I think you just mentioned it. Certainly, it's Davante Adams, and his appearance against the Packers for the first time since the trade. Jair Alexander hopefully going to be able to match up against him, as you mentioned. Both came into the game questionable. I think both are going to play, and both will play extensively, and I think they'll play well.
Can the Packers run it? Can the Packers stop the run? These are central questions that have been plaguing this team all year long. Thoughts?
Plaguing this team and the Raiders, Czabe. They're very similar in some of the things that they need to do to win football games, and running the football is primary for both of these teams. I think you'll see an emphasis by both sides on that. But then again, stopping the run has been a question mark for both clubs. So they're very similar at this early stage of the season, and getting the football going on the ground, establishing a running game, I would think would be big for both.
Wayne, I want to rewind it quickly. I know we're recapping this, but as we broke, and we're not on the air Friday when this broke, but David Bakhtiari done for the season. Who knows what that future holds for him? Just talk about kind of that journey from your perspective of it.
Yeah, well, he became the best left tackle in football, got paid like it, and unfortunately for him and for the club and for all of us, suffered a devastating knee injury on New Year's Eve a few years ago and hasn't been able to recover since. He's come back and played, as you know, sporadically here and there. He's made every effort he could, but the knee just has not responded. They're hoping this surgery will take care of it. But then again, now you go into some of the financial aspects of that contract. And, for him to stay with the Packers, that's going to be that's something that, that's way beyond my pay grade. I can tell you that much. But on the other hand, if you look at the mere financial numbers of it, even a restructure, that type of thing, the question becomes, can you rely on David week to week? And that's something I don't think anyone knows, even after that next surgery.
Yeah, and that's what I think, when I look at this, that's my biggest question is what's next? And I think that's the toughest thing as you prepare for this and move forward. I want to transition out to the game, obviously, most important thing. We've talked about kind of the easiness of the schedule. And we say easiness over the next 5 games because I feel like they're all gettable. Mike Heller feels like it's all gettable. They're all very winnable games. This is a stretch where you kind of craft the way you're going to play. That being said, you've got a game tonight with a lot of different challenges. What's the biggest challenge that you see that the Packers have to overcome?
Boy, is there one single challenge? No, I think what we just talked about, stopping the run, begins it. Number 2, I think then you've got to deal with Davante Adams and a talented core of receivers. Jacoby Myers on this receiving core, very good player. Hunter Renfrow, a veteran slot man. But Josh Jacobs is a guy who led the league in rushing just a year ago. He doesn't look any different to me. He's just not getting holes to run through. Their offensive line has been terrible. But I think number 1 for the Packers defense, stopping the run. Number 2, I think the Packers have to establish balance in their offense. They've shown they're willing to go downfield in the passing game, but they must get that running game on track for balance in their offense. And that goes for not just tonight, but for the future.
Why does this defense seem to lack an edge to it, a nastiness to it? It's got the assets. They've paid the guys they've wanted to pay. Where's Kenny Clark these days? I mean, all good questions that Packer fans have been asking me. I don't have any good answers.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes when you see a football team or a football unit like the defensive unit of the Packers, when things don't go well, it looks like they're not playing with an edge. But I went back and watched Stephen the Lions game, and especially saw the edge. There was an edge there early in that game. I thought they played with an edge in the second half. They just got beaten by a team that was really playing well, the Detroit Lions. And, sometimes when that happens in football, Marvin Levy used to tell me this all the time. He says sometimes when it doesn't go well for you, it looks like you're not trying when actually you really are, but it's just not happening. And I think in the last couple of weeks, it just hasn't been happening, especially in that Lions game. But it certainly did in the second half against New Orleans. And I think this defense is capable of playing with an edge. And I maintain they'll have to play with that edge here tonight, because I think the Raiders are going to be intent on getting that ground game going.
I remember the golden age of linebackers in this league in the early aughts, the Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher era. Then with the morphing to a lot of 3-4 base and outside edge rushers, true linebackers became kind of devalued. But watching the Niners last night reminded me of, it's still an important position, very important. And without Devondre Campbell, their best linebacker, is this linebacker core good enough, do you think?
Well, that's a big question. Again, when you look at it, McBride plays, Isaiah McBride plays well, and he seems to be in position. But Devondre Campbell, to me, looks like a bigger player, maybe a little faster as well. Quay Walker's that inside linebacker type. I was watching the same game you were last night. I said the same thing. Those two linebackers inside for San Francisco, they're everywhere. Pittsburgh's got I watched Pittsburgh yesterday on the plane coming out here. If you want to know if you want your defense to play a certain way, play like the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the kind of defense you want to see. And I think the Packers are capable of that. And I think Quay Walker is that guy. And guys, people say we made a lot of tackles downfield, that type of thing. Quay Walker made tackles. He was flying to the ball in that Lions game. His assignment was Jahmyr Gibbs, and Gibbs goes downfield. That's what he does as a running back, that kind of thing. I think Quay Walker's that guy. Devondre Campbell, you need him for that know-how that he has. I think Isaiah McBride's played well, but Campbell would be the guy you want in there. He's running your show up front, and they miss him. There's no doubt about that, and they'll miss him again tonight.
Wait, this is my problem, though. We've talked about defenses that look tough. Well, Pittsburgh's been tough for 15 years. Yeah. San Fran's been tough for 5 or 6 years. Like, the Packers should do it all the time. They haven't, and that's been my problem. We've been saying this for so many years that this defense should be tough. And I know there's so many different reasons. In my opinion, I think it's your leadership. They take the personality of your head coach. I just don't think Matt LaFleur is Mike Tomlin, right? Like, now you can come and say, is Shanahan the same? Like, I get all that, but like, I can't put I can't figure out why this defense doesn't have that tenacity to them, because you're right, they should. Why do you think that they just aren't tough? Because this isn't the first year. We've said this now for 5 or 6 years about this Packers defense.
Well, when you talk about San Francisco, and their defense goes back to the Harbaugh days, so it's a lot more than Shanahan, okay? And right. Pittsburgh goes back to Chuck Noll and the 70s. There's a certain culture about those defenses and those organizations. And, if you look at the Packers over the last 30 years, the culture has been now, I know in the early 90s, they had Reggie White and Leroy Butler and a big defense. But what are the Packers' success has been hung on quarterbacks and offense and innovation and that kind of thing. And that's a good thing to be. I mean, you can win championships that way, and the Packers have. But, the defenses that are good year in, year out, seem to me there's a certain amount of, tradition's the wrong word, but culture may be the right word for it. I think that's something the Packers are trying to build, and that's certainly something Brian Gutekunst wants to build, and that's why he's drafted so heavily on that side of the ball. And so far, we've only seen glimpses of it coming together, but hopefully starting tonight we'll see it, because they have the personnel, in my opinion.
Wait, how do you change culture in your opinion? I know it's just a broad question, but how do you change? Because I think you're right. Like you brought it, you're spot on with that. Like, that's been the identity of those teams for a long time. At least, Harbaugh with 49. But like, how do you change that?
I think it's something that you number one, you draft certain kinds of players that can play that way, that have that attitude. And number two, I think you coach them that way. I mean, I look at Joe Barry, and I think he's adapted this year. People are criticizing him for not trying different things. He's tried a lot of different things with this group. And again, we're early in the season, a lot of football left, but I think the Packers, are certainly open to the kind of play that those other defenses have. The Bear front, 6 guys up on the line, the blitzing and that kind of thing, more man-to-man in the secondary, though a lot of those teams play defense as well, as do the Packers. But I think when you look at it, that culture takes time to develop. And I think the Packers have a group of players that can develop that kind of culture, that approach to the game. We just have to be a little more patient, I guess, and hopefully it'll come around and they'll be that kind of defense, because you're right. I mean, I looked at San Francisco last night. They just destroyed Dallas. They destroyed them in every way, both offensively and defensively. And look at that quarterback. I mean, how many times did teams pass on him? San Francisco passed on him 6 times in the draft before they picked him. And he's out there running that Shanahan offense. And Shanahan's an offensive guy. But they've always had, it seems like, good defense going back to the Harbaugh days behind that outstanding offense.
All right. Little Birdie told me you went east this weekend to your high school reunion, 50th in Massachusetts, then flew all the way west to Vegas.
Yeah.
Now you're up at 5 a.m. local time to talk to us. Wayne,
Yeah.
you're a savage. I love it. How was it?
Probably not making much sense here. And as usual.
Oh, you're perfectly lucid.
Killing it.
As the pro that you are. How was the reunion?
And Butchie is asking me questions I can't answer. But, the reunion was fun. It was good. You know what, guys? I grew up in a real small town in Western Massachusetts out in Lee, Mass. And I hadn't seen most of those people for, 25, 30, in some cases, 50 years. And everybody looked different. I remember, and I went into the thing with a lot of trepidation because most of the people I didn't recognize. And so at times it was very uncomfortable, but it was a lot of fun as well. It was neat to get reacquainted with kids you went to grade school and high school with, and some of whom we haven't seen since then.
All right, very good. Well, you are doing yeoman's work, and call a great game tonight. We'll hear it right here on the flagship station of the Green Bay Packers, and safe travels back home. Thank you, my friend.
All right, guys, take care. Have a good day.